This is the Cafe Racer Podcast, episode 60 for August 1st, 2014. I'm Steven. Come on, music. Well, it looks like that wasn't flawless. So Steven's here, and if you guys notice, Crash is not. He's actually out doing his real job in the real world, on a ship somewhere in the Pacific. But I got some guests with me today. I got some friends. I've got Rob, I've got Will, and somewhere in there out in the internets is Michael coming on board quick. But how you guys doing?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you guys, and I'll just give a quick intro and tell the audience how I know you guys. You guys heard us talk about going out to the Overland Expo, and when we were out there, one of our campmates was Will, the guy that we met that was camped with us in this little corral that we had, and we kind of met the guys that that Will was out there to see when I was coming in. I met some of the guys at the gas station, and they were with, what is it? Oh, NC 700?
Yep, that's the bike.
NC 700 forum. They kind of all met out there, and we kind of hung out and talked. And Will's actually sponsoring a really great event, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And Rob, I kind of met, my son actually knew him first, but I met Rob at a Starbucks where all good ADV riders hang out. So I was having some overpriced coffee at Starbucks, and my son kind of recognized him and said, "Hey, I think I sold that guy a gun." My kid used to work at a gun shop, and we started chatting, and Rob went on a really great ride. And the interesting thing is, Rob, you're a motorcyclist, but right now you don't own a bike, right?
No. I've crashed every bike I've ever owned, so I don't allow myself to ride on the street anymore.
And when we talked, you and I, you kind of said part of it was the reason too was just Florida in general, right?
Yeah, it's no. I mean, Florida's like basically it's like putting a toaster in front of your face and riding around. I mean, it's too hot down here.
Right. It's hot. There's really not. The roads are all straight. The traffic's bad. Up here in northern Palm Beach County, it's not as bad as down south in Broward and Dade. But look, there's Michael's ugly mug right there. What was that weird face, man?
Looks like I'm in.
Glad to have you, Michael. All right, good. So, that was frightening. That will haunt my dreams for a long time. That was terrifying, actually. Oh my God, I got to recover. It was like something out of a Halloween movie. Yeah. So, hey, Michael, this is just a quick intro. You went on the trip with Rob, right, to Central America?
Yeah, I did. It was awesome. Can you guys hear me, by the way?
Yeah, we hear you good. Do you own a motorcycle, Michael?
Oh, yeah. I've been riding since 2005.
Okay.
My parents were sissies, so I never had the opportunity to try and ride when I was younger, so I had to be 25 and out of the house before I could. But ever since then, it's been two wheels all the way.
It's funny. A lot of us have that same story, and I know people that, did you see the movie Why We Ride, by any chance?
I haven't, but I want to see it.
Well, it's on. You can get it on Amazon now. It's like $16. I would recommend it, but there's a lot of people in interviews where they talk about riding since they were a little kid, and it was a family event, and they're interviewing people that are like going out to the dunes in California, and everyone's riding together. I had the same experience as you. My father actually club raced in Italy, but my mother forbade it because Buck died on a motorcycle. Some guy that she knew in Pennsylvania died on a motorcycle, so I couldn't have one. So at 18, when I moved out of the house, I bought. This was in. It was actually a little after that. I bought a 1983 CB 1100F that a guy had bought brand new, and it scared him. So I got the bike a few months old. And I hid it at my cousin's house until my mom finally found out. My dad was all excited about it. My mom didn't talk to me for 3 months. I had the same experience, growing up in a family where you really I wasn't allowed to play football. It was just because, somebody got paralyzed once 50 years ago.
One person gets hurt that you don't,
Right.
that's not you, and all of a sudden, yeah. I know.
How about, what are you riding? What kind of bike?
Well, right now I've got a 2014 KTM 1190 Adventure R. So,
Very nice.
yeah, I had a Multistrada 1200S before that, and a Concourse 14 before that, and a Buell XB9S.
So why aren't you hanging out with us at Club Shell on Sunday mornings?
Well, I'm all the way up in D.C., so I live
Forget it then. That's a long ride. All right.
a little bit for
Did you say British Columbia or D.C., Washington, D.C.?
Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. I'm actually going to be in your neck of the woods in a couple weeks, but in a week. Will, how long have you been riding?
Boy, you can count it in months. It's about 16, 18 months now.
Okay.
I'm a newbie, but my story is kind of the same. But somehow I was able to convince my wife that getting a motorcycle was a reasonable thing to do. Still don't know how I did that, but there you have it. And growing up, yeah, I mean, motorcycle really wasn't even in the picture. When I was in college, I looked at it for a short time. Knew a guy who kissed a tree and decided, you know what, Florida at the time, same reasons. Florida, yeah, I'm gonna wait.
This is the funny thing about it is because without being specific about what you do for a living, you're a pilot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's less dangerous. And I was a firefighter at 18. It's like somehow the riding the motorcycle thing was much worse. But whatever. That parents are parents, and yeah. It was really funny because when we were at the Overland Expo, Crash, him and I were having breakfast, and he's like, "Man, I'm really impressed by that guy, Will. He just started riding." And I'm like, "Yeah," because we saw, you were really squared away and dialed in. And the amazing thing is, too, I'll tell the audience, we'll reiterate, he's got an NC700X, which is probably one of the most versatile motorcycles I've ever seen. And I didn't know a lot about it until I sat there and we talked about it at the show. And typically that, is kind of an odd first choice for a young male. I would have thought you would have been on, your first bike would have been a Gixxer or something like that. Why selecting the NC700X?
It's funny. I was February of last year. I really wasn't even planning on buying a motorcycle. Really didn't register with me. And I was flipping through Popular Mechanics magazine one day, and sure enough, I see this picture of a motorcycle that looks awesome, and it has a front trunk that's opened up. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty amazing. I read it, and I'm like, oh, you can fit your helmet in here. I said, oh, and it gets 70 miles to the gallon. Oh, and it's a perfect commuter ride, and it's a Honda, so I'll never have to worry about it starting. So I was starting to think, I was like, I had an old beater pickup truck that I was driving to work every day before that, and it got like 12 miles to the gallon or some stupid thing like that. And so I said to myself, I want a vehicle that can go off-road, gets good gas mileage, and is fun to ride like a sports car, because that's where I came from, was the sports car world. I've got a Mustang that's all tricked out and all that fun stuff. So I'm like, well, what vehicle in the world can do all of those things except for a motorcycle? And I still haven't found one. And when I saw that bike, I'm like, wow, you know what? I can make that bike work. It's cheap enough. The gas mileage is good enough. I like it. If I'm ever gonna buy a bike, that's the bike for me. And 2 months later, it was in my garage.
And it's a very versatile bike. Now, Rob, somehow or another, it strikes me that you were that Gixxer guy.
You know what I'll do? I'll if I can, I'll try and pull up a picture on my phone. I got pictures of me when I was 17 and 18, standing on the tank, riding backwards.
Right.
Yeah, that was me. I actually had a 91. My first bike was my second bike, because I crashed my first one, was a CBR 900, a 91. First year it came out.
Right. That was me. The stupid thing I buy is an 1100F, and I was the squid driving around in shorts and sneakers and no helmet and crap, and I looked cool. I had like aviator glasses on and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, now, and I respect your decision now at this point in your life and where you live and what you're doing not to own a bike, because the trip you guys took, and we'll talk about that in a second, to me would have satisfied riding need for a while if I could do a trip like that once a year.
Yeah.
Well, and what you,
that's our goal. I mean, it's we went down there with it was a total of 8 of us, and me and Mike went on a trip a couple of years ago. We went from South Carolina up to Toronto and back, and then a couple of years before that we did the Grand Canyon. So I'm trying to basically drag these guys out of their holes and make them go on these really fun trips with me. More so to save my life, because if not, I'll buy a bike, and like I said, I've crashed every bike I've ever owned.
So let's not keep the audience in suspense anymore. Why don't you tell us what the event was and where you guys went, and we'll go from there.
Well, so it was. I got married about a month or so ago, and I told him.
Stupid. I'm sorry.
What, really? Why didn't you tell me that before I got married?
Hey, I'll say congratulations. I'll be that guy. Congratulations.
No, really, congratulations, man. It's great. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So anyways, I've known these guys, all the guys that I went on the trip with, I've known for over a decade, and I said, hey, listen, we're gonna do this right. I got married down in Nicaragua. So I told all the guys I want to do my bachelor party in Costa Rica, and I want to do it on motorcycles. And the reason why, well, obviously for obvious reasons why I want to do it, but I knew that me saying that I'm getting married and this is my bachelor party would give them a good reason to give their wives why they had to go. So so we did Costa Rica. Mike, what was it? Was it 6 days, 5 days, 7 days? I forget.
Yeah, it was 6 days, 5 nights, and we actually I had to finagle with the company a little bit to actually work that out. But yeah, I figured they had the company we went to, and we'll talk about them, but had different packages. But I figured if we're going to be in a bike, it should be at least for 5 days. I've done a bunch of trips myself, but it's just nice riding with the group of guys that I know. So yeah, it's just if you're going to take a long trip, if you're going to go somewhere, I mean, it's got to be at least 5 days of riding. Definitely.
Yeah, and I've looked at the trips in Europe, through Edelweiss and some of these other companies, and some of those I would, that type of trip too, I would either try to get to 7 or longer. But the amazing thing about the trip you guys took was the cost, because I've looked at these trips. Now, I didn't know that it existed where you guys went, but in Europe, they started about $5,000. Tell me what you guys paid for what was involved, what you got for your money.
So before I tell you what we paid, I'll tell you that I'd been down there a bunch of times, and my plan was let's all rent KLR 650s and just get lost. Because I've been in Costa Rica 5, 6, 7 times, something like that. So you can rent KLR 650s for like $60 a day, $55 a day. So it's not terribly expensive if you want to go the cheap route. I'm terrible at planning things. I just go and I figure it out as I go along. So Mike planned it, and how'd you find them, Mike? Do you remember? And tell them all about that.
Yeah. So there are a couple of companies down in Costa Rica that charge. I won't say who they are, but they charge like they're Edelweiss. And so one of them had KTM dirt bikes, 450s and whatnot, and they wanted, per person $2,600, which was an absolute no-go.
For 5 days?
Yeah, for 5 days.
Right.
Their trip was a little more off-road oriented, but I thought Rob and I went back and forth on how we wanted to do the trip, because at first we were thinking, okay, well, Rob's been down there a lot. It'll be my first time down there. We can do the whole rent a bike thing, get lost, and good luck to us. But we wanted to do other stuff than just ride. So we looked at doing the completely guided tour, and that was, I mean, we're all 30 something, and the whole hand holding thing wasn't cool with us. So we ended up talking with a company called Costa Rican Trails, and they had this thing where the trip is basically, here are your waypoints each day, whatever you want to do, you can, however you figure out when to go to waypoint, you can do that. And that's what we ended up doing. So each waypoint was a hotel, and we just kind of shot. We made our own route and just shot to each hotel, and it was really awesome because it gave us somewhere to go. We had a hotel, and how we decided to get there was totally on us, and we ended up picking the best routes that we thought. So
what was the distance per day to get to each one of these hotels? What were you looking at travel time?
Well, travel time, the shortest, what was it, Rob? Like maybe 2.5 hours, and the longest run, I think it was the last leg, and that was a 6-hour burn.
Yeah, and it was kind of a sucky drive, and if anybody plans on going down to Costa Rica, we'll tell them what to avoid. But for all that, we had we originally were going to get a BMW GS 650.
Yes. That's 650.
Yeah, and I think for the trip. And this was including, they picked us up at the airport, all the hotels, all the breakfasts, the bike, and then transport back and forth to the hotel and the airport. I think it was like $1,200 or something like that.
Yep.
That's nothing. That's just dirt cheap.
It was less than $1,300.
And on top of that, 2 weeks before the trip, they accidentally ran out of the GS 650s, and we got upgraded to 700s, 800s, and 1200s for no cost.
The email literally said, "We have a problem. No longer have."
Yeah, not a problem for you, right?
We only can do 700s, 800s, and 1200 GSs. Of course, no charge. Is that a problem?
And the idea I like about this is it would give me a lot of loiter time to be able to stop in a small town, take pictures, meet people, eat. So you were on your own for lunches and dinners, right? Breakfasts were included?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think Edelweiss might be, I think they give you 2 meals a day, but still, the difference in price, that's phenomenal. And that, it's a trip I've been seriously looking at now because I've never been down there. You didn't require any hand-holding at all during the trip, correct?
Nope. And they give you options, so you can get the bikes and just go do what you want to do. You can do what we did, where they'll give you the waypoints, or if you're not quite as comfortable, they can have a guided tour, and they can have somebody show you around. So we could have actually had that trip for less money out of pocket to them if we would have just got the bikes from them. I want to say the bikes, if we rented them, were under. They had to be under $100 a day. They might have been like 95 or maybe $100 a day if we just rented them outright.
Yeah. It was funny because I met a guy at the Overland Expo that had a big GS, and he had stickers all over the boxes that were from European countries. And I said, have you ridden, and including New Zealand? I said, have you ridden over there? And he goes, yeah. And he said, I've shipped my bike over there. And I said, well, how long does it take to get there? He goes, well, I take it on the plane with me. I buy a ticket for the bike. They load it in cargo. You have to have it packed yourself. There's specifics on how to pack the bike. And I said, well, isn't that really expensive? He goes, it's less than renting a bike. So
really?
Yeah, and I was kind of amazed by that. And he actually sent me some information about the people who do the packing, because they actually have to box the bike up. The front wheel comes off, the handlebars come off, it gets boxed in a crate, and it takes up a space in the cargo hold that you pay for. He said, I asked him what the ticket price was, and I don't remember if he said it was like the same as a business class ticket. I think that's what he told me. But that in Europe, it's not cheap to rent a large, like a leader bike, a big capacity motorcycle. Smaller bikes and scooters may be a different story, but if I wanted to go over there and do a kind of on your own thing, I'd want to have, a 650 and up to be able to get around. But for what you guys did and what you spent, that's a bargain, and I've never really heard people talk about it as much as I've heard them talk about some of the other tours where you're starting at $5,000 to $10,000. The tours that they're doing right now in Cuba, one of those companies that's doing it through the people-to-people pass, it's like $8-9 grand, for a week for 7 days.
Yeah, it's really expensive. We were actually looking at we went to the New York International Motorcycle Show, and Edelweiss was out there. And what they were charging, we might as well just buy a bike and buy a ticket, out there.
Yeah.
It would have been a little bit.
I'm going to investigate taking the bike over. Hey, Will, have you ever done any of these types of trips before?
No, I'm new to the whole thing, but I have looked into the Edelweiss and various other ones. That MotoQuest is another one that comes to mind. Cost being what it is. MotoQuest has an option actually out of Alaska. That's one of the more price conscious ones I can think of, but it's not so much a trip as it is an out and back and adventure training area trip.
Right.
So you go there, and I would like to do that one day, but I definitely think there's a lot of ways talking about it. As a matter of fact, we're kicking around the idea of a sequel to the ride that we're planning up here for the next maybe next 2 years or something. That would be like a Trans-Australia kind of thing.
So,
but it would be cheaper to just ship the bike or go there and buy a bike.
right.
So
So let's segue into what you were talking about a second ago. We'll get back to Rob and Mike on the trip, but you mentioned to Crash and I when we were out in Arizona, and since then we've put it on the Facebook page, you actually have organized and planned a memorial ride. So why don't we talk about that for a second and tell us the background, who that's for, and how it came about, and where you guys are going, because this is something you guys, Rob and Mike, might want to do because it's coming up. But go ahead, Will.
Yeah, thank you. So got back in college, I had a really good friend by the name of Vinblastine. He was an Australian guy. He's the type of person that you meet once and you're instantly friends with the guy, and and nobody you ever talk to has a bad thing to say about him. It's just one of those unique type of individuals. Furthermore, he was always a guy who was traveling. I mean, he would take off on annual leave for Christmas holiday, and then he'd show up a month after everybody else did, and you're like, hey, where have you been? And he just, mate, I can't tell you that. I just got to tell you over a beer. Everything had to have a story, and he wouldn't tell you the story until, you sat down with a beer. Literally, he drug me out for 3 months until we found a place to sit in and have a beer one day to tell me the story. And it was a good story, too. It was about him flying a small single-engine airplane across the Pacific from California to Sydney, Australia. And, with big ferry tanks in it and everything. But, when you meet one of these type of people, sometimes they kind of change your life. He was at my wedding. He was a great friend. And about 2008, he ended up leaving and going back to Australia to try and find a job there. The market was like it was here, too, so there was nothing. Anyways, he continued traveling, which met him. He went all over Vietnam, Thailand, Israel, you name it. And about 2010, on Thanksgiving of 2010, actually, he was taking another trip in another small single-engine airplane out of Hollister, California. And during the climb out, the fuel tank, it's about 600 pounds of fuel that sits in the cabin with you, it came loose and shifted. And when it did, there was nothing he could do. The airplane entered a flat spin and went all the way down, and he didn't make it out. And it was a big impact for everyone in our community and worldwide. I mean, the outpouring of friends, on Facebook and things like that, and memorials that came out of it were pretty tremendous. At the time, I just moved out to Arizona for a new job, and I had no way of getting out there. So we did a little bit of a mountain hike up for him and tried to, memorialize him in our own way. But it never really satisfied. It never really kind of cut it, So fast forward about 4 years, I just bought this motorcycle. And, January of last year, I was looking for ideas of a little family trip to do. And I sat there and I realized that where I'm living at in southeast Arizona, Yosemite is only about a 13-hour drive away by the interstate. I'm like, oh, well, hey, Yosemite seems like a cool place to go. We should go look at that. Anyway, I said, well, I'm not going to just, if I can, I'm going to want to ride my bike. And long story short, I called up my two best friends who are good friends with Ben, and I said, hey, what do you guys think about this? What if I told you, let's all get on motorcycles and ride from southeast Arizona to Yosemite, and we're not going to do it on interstates, obviously, because that would be terrible. We're going to find the best way we can do to do this. And they were instantly in. And it's just built. It's kind of like a snowball. It's built from there. And now we're a charity organization associated with a 501c3 not-for-profit organization that has a scholarship in Ben's name. The scholarship is actually the Vinblastine Memorial upset recovery training scholarship. And what it is it goes towards training students, pilots at Embry-Riddle, how to recover their aircraft from unusual flight attitudes. So it could be like turbulence. There's been a number of very famous, unfortunately, accidents that have happened in the past 5 years or so with aircraft that this all kind of correlates back to. So this training is really important. It's not always received because it's optional, unfortunately. And if there's one thing I can tell you about Embry-Riddle is that people don't usually have much more extra money to throw around when they're going to college.
That's an expensive school, right?
Yeah. So anyways, anything we can do to help out. This was something that was at the heart of Ben. You know, this is one of the things he believed in. There's actually an aerobatics contest in his name that goes on annually up in Keystone Heights, Florida. And he used to train students in upset recovery techniques. So now we're sitting there going, okay, this is something we really got to do. We got to raise funds for this if we can. We're trying to make this kind of like you would sponsor a person when they go run a marathon or something, except we're going to go what was originally 1,300 miles there, and then we'll get back some other way, is actually now we have a fourth rider who's come on board, and we're looking at a combined total distance of over 22,000 miles by the time we're all said and done.
Wow. You got guys coming from Daytona, right?
Yeah, we have 2 riders who are going to ride on 600 class adventure bikes. So actually, SV 650s, maybe a KLR, and then my bike all the way out from Daytona. So there's only 2 of us that are riding from Daytona. Unfortunately, I can't get the leave off, but we got 2 riding from Daytona. One's going to ride down from Denver. He's talking about riding the Colorado Backcountry Discovery Route, or part of it, and maybe the Continental Divide Trail, part of that. We're all, generally speaking, relative novices. You know, we're no expert riders on this thing. So I'm trying to tell
disaster off-road.
I know. I'm trying to tell them, hey, be reasonable about this here. But because I want to get us to Garrapatta. That's the name of the ride, Get Out to Garrapatta. And that's the name of our website at getoutogarrapatta.org with a 2, number 2. And anyways, people can go and check us out there. It's pretty good website. I'm pretty happy with it. There's a lot of information about, everything from Ben to what the cause is to our route. And we've got a blog that we're updating every other day on that, and we're going to have a lot more information of it, obviously our sponsors. Just a word, we've had some really great, partially because of the people like you guys that I met at Overland Expo. I met the owner of Twisted Throttle, Eric, and he's set us up with some just fantastic discounts, things like at cost stuff, just because.
Eric's a really good guy, and he's a friend of mine. I know Eric for a really long time, way back before anything, when he was, just starting Twisted Throttle. He's a really good guy and a solid individual. So I'm glad you guys got hooked up.
Same here. It's been amazing. I've had nothing but great things to say about him. Justin from Butler Maps has set us up with some of their fantastic maps. And we just word broke yesterday, actually, Cena is going to sponsor us with Bluetooth headsets and recording gear.
And this is amazing because, this is a new guy to riding that puts this thing together, and the industry just comes together to help you guys out, which is phenomenal. This is going to be a yearly event now, right?
Well, we hope. It's certainly going to be this year. And then we have, like I said, a 4th rider. We're inviting any rider to join us. For all or part of the ride. That's one of the things Ben believed in was, just welcoming anybody. And so that's kind of the attitude we're taking towards it. What we're going to do is say, for folks who want to join us for, hey, we want to join you for a section of the ride, or we want to join you for all the ride, that'd be great. We'd love to have anybody, and we just ask for, donations to the scholarship, and in exchange, 100% of all the donations go directly to the students, which is dynamite, no cost or anything like that. But one thing I did forget to mention, the heart of the ride goes from Sierra Vista to Garrapatta State Park, which is in Big Sur, right outside of Carmel, California, so just south of San Francisco. It's about 1,300 miles. Not 1 mile is on an interstate, and over about 200 to 300 miles are on dirt. So
How about like from Daytona? Is that going to be interstate, or that's you're going to try to do secondary roads?
I think they're going to do all secondary roads. Considering SV 650 and a KLR, if you can help it, I think they'd rather be on the
Why don't you
secondary.
tell us the dates now when this is going to take place this year?
So the riders are going to leave Daytona Beach October 4th or thereabouts.
Okay.
Ride out here over about 4 or 5 days, take a couple days off, and then we head north on October the 12th, which is a Sunday. That's the plan. It could slip. Obviously, the nature of this kind of thing, it could slip a little bit if they have a mechanical or something. But that's our plan. October 12th, we're going to plan to take about 6 or 7 days to get out to Garrapatta, and then about 6 or 7 days back, more or less.
Okay.
Our route back is still, like you were saying, plan to get lost. Our route back, we're probably planning to get lost because we have a couple of maps, and we're going to figure it out once we get there.
All right. So people that want to get involved, they can go to the website, and I'll have that in the show notes. And if they want to just do a portion of the ride, like some people from Daytona that are listeners that maybe want to go with you to the edge of Florida, they can contact you through the website, correct?
Please, yeah. They can contact us through the website. All our information is there. There's a form that they can enter all their information. It sends me an email directly. We also have Facebook and Twitter accounts. If you Google "Get Out to Garrapatta," you should be able to find us and get in touch with us there. And be happy to talk with anybody about it. And we'd be happy to have anyone about it join us for all a part of.
And if we do this, you do it again next year, I'll probably get involved. This year, being October, there's a bunch of events motorcycle related that happen in October, and that's actually the weekend of Overland Expo East. But
wow, okay.
Yeah, and I want to get involved, and with Crash being out in San Diego, he may be able to hit maybe one or two of the legs out in California. But it sounds like a really worthy cause. I never knew that there was specific training for that type of catastrophic failure in an airplane, and that's interesting that you guys came up with a scholarship for that. So I'm looking forward to seeing this be successful, and I'm glad that Senna, Twisted Throttle, Butler has got involved with you guys. That's great. We'll have a link on the show notes for the ride, and I know that I've been putting posts on Facebook about it.
Awesome. We really appreciate it. It's been challenging getting the word out at times, but we've really started to make strides. And like I said, it's starting to snowball. We're picking up steam. People are really starting to get interested in it, and we're really excited about that.
You know what you should do too is if the route's interesting that you guys take, you should get Justin to do a Get Out to Garrapatta map, which would be kind of cool.
That's great.
Yeah, especially if you find some cool secondary and back roads on there. I know that he's getting ready to release the Eastern Series for the Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina that should be coming out really soon. You know about that, Michael? Have you heard about that?
Oh, yeah. So I bomb around there all the time, 20, 30 minutes out of the city, and, it's Blue Ridge Parkway, about an hour and some change, but there's lots of nice little secondary and B roads all throughout there, and up and down all the time. Though I started staying away from the Blue Ridge Parkway and Skyline Drive just because, the speed limit's
35, right?
And the deer in the area is pretty bad.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Butler maps at all?
I am actually. I've seen them. I'm actually want to buy some because I want to do their Arizona backcountry discovery route.
Right.
And I'm stoked. I heard that they're actually going to start doing the East Coast as well. So
we talked to him at the Overland Expo when we were out in Arizona, and that, like I said, that series should be out really soon if it's not already out. But I talked to him maybe a couple weeks ago and told him, hey, put me on the notification list when it does come out, and I'll get it because I go to North Carolina a lot. My wife's family has a house there, so I try to take the bike whenever I can. And there's some great roads that are, like you said, not necessarily the Parkway or the Dragon or places like that. It's just roads, 28 going to the Dragon, to me, is a better road. There's no one on it. It's phenomenal.
It's awesome. I don't know if they call it the Snake, but it's. I've been on that road, and it's less people. You got less, squids, less Miatas, and less cops. It's great.
Yeah, and the Dragon's turned into more of a destination now, and I'd say go there during the week and just ride it at a really low speed to say you did it and maybe get a picture from Killboy. But to go and have any fun on that road, it's just way too dangerous. There's too much traffic on it. Like you said, there's car groups on there, and you'll get every once in a while the stray motorhome or tractor trailer that doesn't realize they're not supposed to be on that road, and then it really gets interesting. And of course, you know, the 8-foot wide Harleys pulling a trailer that end up off the side constantly. But so.
Speaking of Butler, I talked to Justin just today, and they just released 2 days ago a new website called writingsocial.com. I'm still exploring it myself, but it's fantastic. And you'll be able to get digital copies of all their maps now with an annual subscription, if you like, on your iPad or what have you, just delivered straight to you from that Writing Social site. And you can actually coordinate with other riders to meet up and ride, not just meet up and go.
Yeah, Crash and I signed up for that when we were in Arizona, and we thought it was a pretty cool concept. So I'm glad that it's launched. I didn't know that they did it yesterday. That's cool. Getting back real quick, I want to finish up with Rob, so I got a bunch of questions for you. I'm still really curious about, so you guys went out there, you did this trip, you signed up for, this was a bachelor party. What did you guys do about gear? Did they have gear? Did you bring gear? How'd that work out?
We had to bring all our own gear. So they don't rent that stuff. They didn't provide it. I know Mike had the one thing you got to know about gear is you can fly down there with the helmet in your hand, but Mike had a hard time getting out of Nicaragua. He had to check the helmet. He tried to take it on board, and they said no, it's a weapon. So I packed all my stuff. Yeah. So and he's got, I mean, you got what, like $800 Arai?
Yeah, it's a Arai Quantum 2 with the jungle theme, and it's out of production. It's a really sweet helmet, so I was kind of pissed about that because our buddy brought 2 bottles of water in, which is a huge no-no here in the States, but down there it's fine. But not the helmet.
So yeah,
helmet's a weapon, nice.
Yeah, we brought all our gear down there. I packed it all in, and it wasn't that big of a deal. Just throw it in your big bag if you can.
How about GPSs? How'd that go? They had them on the bikes?
Mike, did you bring yours, or did Bill bring his?
No, we actually didn't. We didn't bring ours at all.
We should have.
So how'd you guys find the waypoint? Just on your phone, or did you have SIM cards for Costa Rica?
I was the man of this one.
Yeah, no, we just got lost.
I'm okay with that. I don't care.
Well, no. So we had there were six guys on bikes and 2 guys in a car because one of the guys didn't ride, so he just followed along in a car. So they had maps, and we kind of figured out.
That had to have been a lot of fun for him.
Well, actually, the guy who was driving, his name's Booney. The guy who was driving, it was a Kia, what was it called?
Kia Mojave. It's the biggest SUV they make with a stomping diesel engine.
Wow. Yeah, so it's a 6-cylinder diesel engine, and the guy drives so crazy. Literally, we're on mountain roads, and we couldn't catch up with him. We're on motorcycles. He's in a Kia SUV, and we couldn't keep up with him. And at the end of the ride, my buddy Nick, who was driving with him, he said, "I'm never getting in the car with him again because, I think he almost took that Kia off the side of a cliff a couple times, and I mean, if he was going any faster, he definitely would have." So yeah, he was doing the map stuff, and we got lost a couple times. We sort of knew where we were going. What I did in like the second or third day, I just got on my computer. They got Wi-Fi at all the hotels. I got on my computer. I pulled it up on Google Maps, and I figured it out from there. And after we did that, after we printed everything up, and we used you can't really use like directions on there, like take a left at Avenue 6 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So what we started doing was we would get the waypoints or the turns by kilometers. So we would set our trip meters, and we'd say, all right, we got to go 15 kilometers. All right, now we got to start looking for the turn. Then we go reset the trip meter, and then that's how we started finding our way around.
I guess that makes sense, right?
Yeah, because directions in Costa Rica are like, go to the red house with the mango tree and take a right.
It literally says that. A lot of the signs on the road say, hey, there's a coffee shop to the right, just a heads up, and that's actually like a street sign. A lot of the signs, and I've been to Costa Rica and Nicaragua now, and a lot of it's like a few big signs in each of the major cities, and then it says, like Managua, that way, and you just got to hit that road and just keep, okay, well, I guess it's well, we've been on this road for 30 minutes. I think we're still going the right way.
Somewhere in this general direction, we'll find Managua, right?
Yeah. It's like the whole shoot and pray kind of thing.
Yeah, well, in some of those countries, that's probably the only road getting there, so you're not going to get lost, I guess.
Yeah.
If there was anything you guys had to do over again that you didn't do this time, what would it be?
Honestly, I wouldn't have done the hotels. I would have just gotten lost, because what happened was, a couple of times on the longer trips, it wasn't so much. I mean, we were enjoying the ride, but at the same time, it was all right. We got to get to this destination. This is where we're going. We're getting lost. We were going to. We came back. We went down to the Pacific Coast, down to a place called Dominical, and then we rode back up to. We left San Jose the first day to Dominical, and then we rode back through San Jose to a place called Poas Volcano. So we had to go back through San Jose, which is just this massive. I mean, it's a massive city, and it's all these tight little roads, and it's just. I mean, it's a mess. So we spent about a good 2 hours just getting lost in all the little suburbs of San Jose.
Were you not worried about that at all, with possible, crime or interactions with local law enforcement? Was there anything you guys had with you specifying that you were on a tour or the bikes were owned by a company? How'd that work?
My license plate was underneath the seat. That's how they gave it to me.
Nice. That'll work, I guess.
I was going to say, the thing that kind of showed that we were in tours, most of the bikes there were maybe no larger than 250, maybe 500 cc's, and it was a group of guys in gear. The other thing is we're wearing gear, so it's a group of guys in gear and BMWs. So we definitely stuck out, but people really didn't mess with us at all. And the police over there, they said that Costa Rica per capita has the most accidents, but we only saw one accident. So and the way the police treat bikes is, it's like
tell them the story about that. Tell them the story about the sport bike on the highway.
Well, okay, this is a perfect one. So we were actually, this was the last day of the trip, and we were heading back into San Jose. It was the only times we ever caught traffic was actually leaving San Jose and coming back to San Jose, which was the capital of Costa Rica.
Mm-hmm.
We're in classic gridlock. We're inching along, and lane splitting it's legal. It's just the norm, which is great. I wish they'd do that over here. But one of the only big bikes we saw on that trip was some guy it was either a GSXR 600 or 750. One of the rules in Costa Rica is you just can't pass on the right. That's one of the few major rules they have. Well, this guy lane splits, passes us on the right, and there was a cop right in front of us, and right in front of the cop was a semi-truck, and it was a 2-lane road, 2 lanes into the city, 2 lanes out of the city, in a double yellow. This guy passes us on the right, passes the cop on the right, lane splitting, cuts in front of the cop. So now he's been between the police officer and a semi-truck, gets in the opposing lanes, passes a semi-truck. I guess now technically it's legally on the left.
On a blind corner.
On a blind corner, jumps back in the lane, and we're all in a group, and we start looking at each other. We're like, did that just seriously happen?
Right.
If this was in Virginia or D.C., they would have sent the attack drones out of you at this point.
You would have been proned out in Florida by Florida Highway Patrol, man. Just on the ground.
No, the cop car didn't shake. He was trying to figure out how to get to this guy. Nothing. And my brains could have blown out through my helmet at that point.
He's going home for his coffee, probably. Yeah, well, and everyone's got a bit different culture. You always hear. I hear such varying stories about Central and South America, where some people that do motorcycle tours down there talk about never having any interaction, everything's great. And other people talking about getting shook down every 10 miles by, some local federale looking for a payoff. So it's hard for me to judge, but talking to you guys and seeing that your experience for the most part was pretty benign, right? When it came to law enforcement, you weren't really hassled at all, and
yeah, we weren't. In fact, the unspoken rule of theirs, the police aren't allowed to chase bikes, and they don't usually want to hassle the bikes. The first time Rob and I went to Nicaragua, though, we were in a vehicle, and we got stopped all the time. But I think because we're in bikes, they kind of left us alone.
Well, that makes it even more of a reason for me to want to go down there now. I mean, I'm so interested in this trip, and we'll probably talk again about some more specifics because there's about 10 million questions I could ask you guys about it. And Rob, maybe me and you will get together over coffee one day and maybe we'll kick out an interview or something. But let me get to some email real quick, and I'll get you guys' input on some of this stuff because I got you here and you're captive right now. So I got an email the other day from Courtney, who happens to be a woman, and she said, "Hey Steve, I'm a big fan of the show and Moto Guzzis. I'm trying to make my next bike the V7. Anyway, I've not heard you talk about going to Barber's this year. I've never been, but from your commentary last year, I bought tickets this year and decided to camp. I can't find information anywhere about what kind of amenities are at the camping sites. Do you recall if there was any water or electrical on the sites, bathhouses? Also, you and Chris, especially Chris with his Bonneville, have inspired me to outfit my TU250X for touring. This October will be my first foray into road tripping and camping. I will have to frequent the ADV forum for advice. Hope to see you at Barber's. Thanks for the great podcast." Courtney, I appreciate your email, and I had actually emailed her back to give her some information about there is indeed bathhouses and amenities at Barber. Now, what she's talking about is the Barber Vintage Festival. Have any of you guys ever attended that at Barber Motorsports Park?
I'll tell Courtney that she can use the bathhouses, but traditionally the women there are supposed to shower outside. That's like a thing over there, so just go with it. Yeah.
Okay. There you go. There's some advice from Rob, but...
I thought you were showering in beer, right?
Huh?
Showering with beer, I think. That's as legend goes.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's right.
Real
Yeah.
nice. Prepare yourself, Courtney. This is the kind of crowd you're going to find there. Barber Vintage Festival takes place at Barber Motorsports Park, and if you've never been there, it's a motorcycle owner's enthusiast's dream. George Barber has built probably one of the most amazing museums anywhere in the world, and he's got the largest privately owned collection of motorcycles I've ever seen, including some Lotus race cars too. But it's a phenomenal place, and during the Vintage Festival, they actually open up the lower level where the design shops are and everything that they use to restore the bikes. The festival itself is phenomenal. There's a bunch of vintage racing that goes on. There's an auction that's incredible. There is one of the largest flea markets besides the one at Mid-Ohio. And it's just an all-around good time. And for us, for the Cafe Racer community, they have the Ace Cafe Corner there. So if you're going to buy tickets to the event, spend the extra money, get the tickets for the Ace Cafe Corner. It's really neat. It's worth it. It's the best seats in the house to view the racing, but you also get to meet and talk to and see all the bikes that the builders built. Iron and Air Magazine was there, Dime City Cycles, Loaded Gun Customs. There was just a bunch of the great builders there. So if you're going to go, that's the thing to do. When I went, I didn't camp. I stayed with the Ducati owners group at one of the hotels in Birmingham, and that was a great experience too, because at that hotel, Mark Willsmore, the owner of the Ace Cafe, was there. I got to meet a lot of people and hang out with some really nice people from the Ducati group. Courtney, as far as the bike is concerned, the TU250, that's a great little motorcycle, and you sent me in a subsequent email, told me that you've got some hard bags on it and some soft bags, and you're going to have a good time. She doesn't have a very long ride. She's coming from Tennessee. That's a great bike to learn on and a great bike to start, and especially if you're not really a big person, the TU250 is a phenomenal bike, and like a lot of the 250s, it'll run forever. She's gonna. This is her first time, I think, camping at a motorcycle event. Will can tell you that at where we were at in Arizona, the show is an honor to Will, because the first night we kind of sat around and talked to Will, he introduced me to something called hardtack, and we're sitting around and we're drinking. I don't even know if I had a beer at that point, but Will's like, "You guys want some hardtack?" And we're like, "What's that?" He goes, "Oh, it's cool. It's like sailor's bread that they make." And I think actually the bread that Will gave us was made in like the 1600s.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's like eating a piece of cardboard, but oh, my wife made it. It's really good. I'm like, right. I still haven't figured out, with all the other good crap that's out there, why you decided to bring a bag of hardtack with you.
You know what? Because my wife handed it to me and says, "Hey, you want to take this with you and eat it and get rid of it?" So thank you.
Was she a British sailor at some point? Where did she?
What's that?
Was she a British sailor at some point?
No. We actually had it given to us by a baker, and he had been making it up for historic reasons or whatever. And yeah, it makes a good survivalist food. So
Well, let me tell you something. I did some research on it when I got home because I'm curious about, of course, we're going to rat hole into this topic. There's a maritime museum in the UK where there's still pieces of the hardtack biscuits from like the 1500s or something sitting in there intact. So it's basically stucco, that you're eating.
I haven't had any since Overland Expo, so there you go.
Have you guys, either one of you guys, Rob or Mike, ever tried this stuff?
Yeah.
I've never had it, no.
Yeah, history's pretty big where I'm from, so we've had it. What I was thinking, I mean, it could be good adventure gear. You could use it to support your side stand in soft soil.
That's a damn good idea. Make it a side stand puck, and if you get hungry, you can eat it afterwards. You know what? I'm going to keep some in my bag just for that. No, so getting back to camping, where Will and I were camping, the ground was it was a horse pasture area, so it was really rocky and it was freezing. At night, what do you think, Will? It got down in probably the low 40s, high 30s, maybe.
Yeah, that first night we got there. Well, I got there on a Thursday night, and they said on Monday it had snowed. So that gives you an idea. Yeah.
Right. It was pretty cold, and me being a Floridian and basically a pussy when it comes to cold weather, I was like miserable. And I got up the first night we were there. I think all of us woke up around 2:30 in the morning because we thought the sun was out, and it was the moon. It looked like somebody had turned on a spotlight. That's how bright it was. So I ended up getting up at probably 5, and there was a guy, Pat, there that was a pretty hardcore rider riding an HP2, and I got up and I had coffee with him, and we kind of chatted for a while. That was the funny thing I was going to kind of talk about is when we were talking about you doing this overland trip and you guys doing the trip down south and on adventure bikes. One of the sponsored trips that they had while we were at Overland Expo was a ride out to the Grand Canyon, and one of the guys that was camped with us had done this. They were gone almost 12 hours. And when they finally got back, they were like, yeah, one guy got a concussion and one guy's KTM split in half, and we had to cinch the frame back together with straps, and another guy probably separated his shoulder. I'm like, holy cow, that was serious. But they had listed that ride as an easy ride on the thing.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's an easy ride. So I get a really big respect for off-road riding, especially to the untrained individual. And that the funny thing is the bike Will's riding, there was 3 of them there, and they all looked different. They all had these things kind of kitted out as an adventure bike. But the reality is, like the Stelvio I have, these really aren't dirt bikes. They're not off-road bikes. They might be a little bit off-road capable when it comes to a gravel road or maybe some hard packed dirt. But the reality is some of the areas that these guys were going, there's a lot to be said about proper training and navigating, an over 450 pound to 650 pound with gear on it, close to 700 pound motorcycle takes a different skill set. And I learned that a long time ago. So one of my goals is to get some additional training when it comes to that. As far as camping is concerned, Courtney, you sent me an email, said you're going to use your little brother's gear for right now and get it figured out. That's probably the best way to go. Don't spend any money on gear. Figure out what you like. I saw a bunch of really cool gear at the Overland Expo that guys around us were camping with that I figured would help my comfort level, and I actually got rid of the pad that I brought with me and got a bigger pad from one of the vendors there, and I was sleeping a lot better after that because the pad was thicker. The ground that we were on, you could literally feel the holes in it from where horses had been, and it was solid from being so cold, so it was pretty uncomfortable. You'll figure out on tents, you can get really, really cheap on a tent and basically make it a disposable tent, so every season you get another one. If you're spending, Amazon $60 or $70, I think all of us out there had tents probably mid-range price. Will, you had some really cool gear. You got, like, your stove was really a bargain, cheap stove that worked probably better than some of the other ones we had, right? Yeah.
Well,
what did you say?
It wasn't a jet boil quality, but it cost me, I think, $10 for the stove, and then you put it in there, and it heated my food up. What can I say?
It worked the exact same way my Primus that cost like $60 worked.
Yeah. Now there was one piece of tech that I really do recommend. It's a folding chair from REI called the Flex Light, because try as I have not found a piece of luggage that's viable for any option that I can find that's over 21 inches, as any dimension over 21 inches. So this REI FlexLight is a full chair, camping chair, but it folds down to 14 inches.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I had the Mayfly by A-Light, which is really kind of a tiny chair too.
Yeah, but
yeah,
that's helpful for sure.
Kermit makes the camping chair, but that chair is well over $130, and it's pieces, it's wood. There's a lot to put together. There was a bunch of guys that had Kermit chairs out there. They're really nice. Did you happen to notice the red verse tents that were there, where you could actually pull the motorcycle into the tent?
Yeah, I still quite haven't figured that out, personally. I don't know. I mean, it's nifty, but...
You know where that comes in handy is, like, and you can really solve this problem by bringing a cheap motorcycle cover or a tarp. It's the dew, and that first morning we got up, there was ice all over my bike.
Okay.
You're in some, like, southern states sometimes, and you get up and there's rain and dew and stuff like that. A cheap cover, like a tarp, will take care of that. The idea behind the Redverse tent, though, is that the actual shell of the tent is like a giant fly. So that tent goes up first like a garage, and then there's an internal tent that snaps in and hangs inside of that.
Okay.
What's nice about it is wind, rain, protecting your gear, and from a certain security level too. So your bike's kind of hidden inside there. Now the only downsides to the Redverse tent, if you want to call it a downside, is it's considerably more than a lot of entry-level tents. It's around the $450 price, and it's a little bit bigger bag that it packs, and I believe it's packing in close to a 30-liter bag. So it's a big tent. The one thing I did see there, which I thought was really interesting, talking to some of these guys, were some of the cots that they were using that would pack down into a package about this big that was almost like a spring-loaded cot, and on top of that they would have these sleeping bags that are a rectangular bag that's kind of like a bed. It has a sheet over it, and you're able to, like, turn and roll without getting caught up in the sleeping bag. And I kind of like that idea. I may upgrade my bag to something like that. So, Courtney, those are just some suggestions for you. Crash and I will probably keep in touch with you and see how the trip went. You're going to have a really good time at Barber. It's a phenomenal event. There's a lot of really cool motorcycles there. Definitely go walk through the flea market if you can. The auction, I think you have to register for it to go, but it's a good event. You'll have a good time, and you guys too. If you ever get the opportunity, it's something you got to see. I got a couple emails as well on the Moto Guzzi, and I don't know if you guys have been following my saga with the Stelvio, but it's today. We were a little late coming on the air because I was coming back from Miami now from having that bike down there for the third time because it developed another exhaust leak. Luckily, they covered it all under warranty, but one of the things I've been looking at doing is getting one of the Guzzi Tech fueling packages for it. And for those of you out there that are familiar with Todd at Guzzi Tech, he does some phenomenal things with his reflashed ECUs and power commanders. So the big fueling package for the Stelvio is a reflashed ECU, a power commander 5 with an auto tune, 2 wideband oxygen sensors, and I got a letter back from a guy who did that whole gamut, including exhaust, airbox, and he said it completely transformed the bike. That the bike pulls from down low to 6,000 RPMs without a problem, and he's really, really happy with what he got, and that's something I'm going to consider. That the bike's not bad the way it comes from the factory. There's some flat spots between 3,400 and 4,000 RPMs. One of the other things we were talking about is recommendation on tires, and the funny thing is I've gotten 3 emails back from people saying Michelin Pilot Road 4s. Are any of you guys familiar with that tire?
I haven't used the 4, but I've gone through my Multistrada 1200S. I've run through 3 sets of 3s. My little brother's got a KTM as well, and he's gone through a couple of sets of 3s. They're awesome tires. I mean, it's hard to find. I can't imagine the 4s being any worse. They're
supposed to be better. The 4, the compound's supposed to be changed a little bit. What they did do is the sipes, the little cuts in the tire, they've increased the size of those for some better range traction. The idea is that the compound's a little different on the 4. They make it in a trail version, and the only thing that makes it a trail version is the fact that it'll fit, the 150 rear and the 110 front. So it's not like there's a bigger tread block on it or anything like that. Now the bike came with Scorpions originally, the Pirelli Scorpion Trails. The front tire's got 20,000 miles on it, but it's destroyed. It's just so badly cupped that I shouldn't be riding on it. The rear, I changed that at about 7,500 miles and went with a Continental Trail Attack, and that tire's square now. So it really, by the time I got back from the trip at almost 6,000 miles, it was shot. So now I'm going to change, and I think, Mike, I think that I couldn't go wrong with the 3s or the 4s, and if I can find 3s, I may do a 3 in the rear and a 4 in the front.
You should save the money and just, get the 3 for now, and, when it's time for a 4, get a 4. They're awesome tires. I don't like Michelin. I deal with military equipment. Michelin makes, in my opinion, really good tactical tires. Terrible, passenger car tires, and really awesome motorcycle tires.
I'm looking forward to doing something to change it because the tires that I've been using are you would consider probably a 90-10 tire or maybe an 80-20 tire, and for the amount of commuting that I'm doing on pavement and in the rain, I'm thinking that I don't really, if I'm going to do something that's off-road oriented, like if I was going to do a trip maybe to Alaska, I'll ship a set of hide nows or something, Karus or something up there and change into them. But for now, to use a big block, maybe a 70-30 tire, I think I'm just going to be better off getting something that wears better.
Hey, Mike, what were the tires on the 1200 that your brother was riding down Costa Rica? Those were almost street tires, right?
Well, those are Continental Trail Attacks.
Were they?
That's what's on. Yeah, so it's on his KTM and on my current KTM.
No, maybe not Paul's. Maybe Clyde's bike. One of those bikes had like more of a street tire on it, didn't it?
No, they were both Trail Attacks.
Were they? Okay. Never mind.
Rob, where were you running? Or Will, you had some sort of more of a knobby tire on your bike, or was that Jimmy that on his bike? I don't remember.
I had an Avon Distancia, and I think that was they call it a 90-10, but it's a supermoto compound, and I'd like to say I'd recommend it. I would recommend it as far as grip and handling on and off road. It was great. But after 4,000 miles and change, the front tire is almost shot.
That's not a lot on a front tire. The funny thing is there's a guy that I ride with on the weekends here that's he's in probably his late 50s, early 60s, and he's an ex-AMA rider and very, very capable sport bike and adventure bike. And he just went to the PR, I think the 3s, and he told me that he had no issues off-road with them on gravel and hard pack. He said the tires were fine. Now they don't have the depth of tread that, let's say, an Anarchy has or the Trail Attacks, but he didn't have an issue. He said they didn't get squirrely at all, which is good to hear. And that's, if I'm going to do anything here, that's usually what it is. It's gravel and some hard pack. So I think that's what I'm going to end up ordering and go with that and see how they work out. Like I said, between now hearing from Michael and the 3 emails from Chris, Jay, and another guy, it's like nothing but positive reviews. And we'll see. It seems like everybody's talking good about those tires.
Just to jump in as well, you mentioned you wanted to get the auto tune and the Power Commander 5 with the wideband sensors. On my Concourse 14, I actually had that setup, and it worked great as well. The bike ran way better once I ran the wideband and auto tune along with the Power Commander 5. Yeah,
because the sensors, the O2 sensors on the Stelvio now are narrowband sensors, and the thing about Guzzi's are that you can download the Guzzi Diag software for free, and it's like a $35 cable to plug into the ECU. Now for me, I'd have to go get a cheap PC laptop because I have all Macs, but I don't really want to mess with it. I'm afraid that if I load a map in that's crappy, it's just going to make the bike worse. With the Airbox mod and like the Zard exhaust, these guys are talking about having the bike completely transformed. So it's a little pricey with Todd's reflashed ECU, but I think in the long run, if I'm going to keep this bike, it's going to be worth it.
Yeah, it sounds like it'll be worth it. As long as if it runs smooth, the power will be there.
From what Jay, I know him from the ADV forum, the Stelvio thread on the ADV forum, as well as being a friend of the show. He said that when he did the install, he even had a little bit of a glitch, and Todd got on the phone with him, controlled his computer remotely, and did the final tune for him. That's phenomenal. So you know, when I scrape together the cash to do this mod, I think I might end up doing it because it's going to cost me as much as buying another used bike would probably with everything.
Yeah.
On your concourse, did you have stock exhaust or did you change it out to a slip-on?
So I did a whole bunch of things at once. I went from I did a area P 4 to 2 to 1. I removed the secondary butterfly valves that are electronically controlled by Kawasaki. So it was basically some butterfly valves to soften up the power delivery because they assume that, you know, if you're buying a 1400cc bike, you know, based off a ZX14, you don't want power. So I pulled those out, and then I put in a BMC filter, the electronics package, and the Area P exhaust, and it was a cruise missile with bags at that point. It was awesome.
You know, the Concourse is a great bike to begin with, so that probably made it even one step better. I'm looking forward to seeing hopefully what this will do, and I have a buddy of mine too that's talking about doing his as well, so we'll see. One more thing I was going to say to Rob because it got me thinking about it. This is a local event that's coming up, Rob, that you might want to come to because I'm going to like pester you about getting another bike. And what I'd like you to consider maybe is something vintage of smaller displacement that you won't feel like you're going to get in trouble on. In other words, the urge to do the 100-mile-an-hour pass might not be there if the bike won't actually do 100 miles an hour. But Vintage Iron Club of Palm Beach, which is a great group of guys, I'm a member of the club, they're doing a bike night on Clematis Street once a month on the second Thursday of the month. So that'll be coming up, and you should come out and check it out. That date is, help me out here, guys. Second Thursday is, let me tell you real quick here.
Of this month?
Yeah, this month.
The 14th, it looks like.
I'm going to be out of town. I'll be in D.C. on the 14th, but you should come out to Clematis to, they have it at Longboards, which is just west of the train tracks where Hullabaloo is. And just talk to some of the guys from the club. They're a really friendly group, and check out some of the vintage bikes that are floating around. It's a lot of like 4-cylinder Hondas, CBs, some Yamaha XSs, and what you may find out there is a couple of the members have this new Royal Enfield Continental GT, which is a throwback to the 1969 Royal Enfield GT. It looks like a little red cafe racer. It's a 535cc single-cylinder fuel-injected bike. Brand new. That bike's $6,000.
That's nothing.
Yeah, with a 2-year unlimited warranty, and there's a dealer in Lantana. So it's something that you might want to look at if you're getting that, you know, once in a while, that Jones to want to ride on the weekends and not get crazy and not, you know, wreck the bike like you were saying.
Yeah, I was looking at I saw something the other day, and I sent it to Mike. It's called Motorpeds. I'll send you a link if that's not it. But basically, these guys, it's sort of like a downhill mountain bike that they put a 125cc Honda engine in, or something along those lines. So it's, I mean, just basically it's a downhill mountain bike with a bike engine or with a motorcycle engine in it.
So the difference between, and for those of you who don't know, one of the general differences between a downhill bike and a standard mountain bike is a downhill bike kind of has a triple tree on it. So it has like shock suspension on the front that's set up like a motorcycle instead of just having a down tube coming through with a fork on it, right?
Yeah. So it's, I mean, and if you look at it, it's got a spar frame like you'd see on like a Honda CRF or something like that. And but you can still pedal it, or you can put foot pegs on there.
So it's basically a moped.
Right, that's exactly what it is. But it's, I saw. I mean, it looks badass.
What do they cost? What's around about the price range on them?
It looks like the kit's under $3,000.
Yeah, it's cheap. I think Rob should get a Honda Grom and bedazzle it.
There you go.
You know, the bedazzled Groms are really cool. I've seen these kits now out of like Thailand and stuff where they look like Repsol mini GP bikes, and you see, I saw a bunch of them in Daytona that were stretched and everything. It was kind of neat. It's like the Ruckuses. You ever seen these guys like stretch out a Ruckus and put off-road tires on it? Yeah.
The engines are awesome.
It's funny because when that Grom first came out and they did the demo video for it, I'm like, man, that thing is really cool, and it's pretty big. And then I realized like the guy riding it was like 4'9", because I saw it at the AIM Expo and I'm like, oh man, that thing's tiny. It's little. So So real quick, talking about some events that are coming up, just so everybody out there knows. I haven't been really talking about Barber because I just can't logistically go this year with everything that's going on. So the first weekend in October, that first weekend is going to be AIM Expo East, and I'll put a link for that on the show notes. I'm sorry, Overland Expo East. Will can attest to the fact that the one that was out west that we went to was phenomenal. The guy that's doing the sales for it's Michael Kaiser. He's a friend of the show. He's owner of Kinder Rider. He's a great guy. And Michael, I had dinner with him and his great wife and my wife when we were in North Carolina, and he told me that this one's just going to be for the first year in North Carolina is going to be phenomenal. I'm still trying to think about going to that because it's close to me. Right after that is the Barber Vintage that next weekend. So that's like the 8th or something in there, the 10th. There are going to be some phenomenal things going on at Barber with Ace Cafe that we'll talk about. It's coming up in a show, and then right after that weekend is the AIM Expo in Orlando. If you're in the area of Orlando, Rob, you got to go. It's you're down here. It's a quick drive. We went last year. There's going to be over 400 vendors this year. It's open to the press on Thursday, Friday, and then on the public on Saturday, Sunday, and they're doing demo rides too. So I know Suzuki will be there, Eric Buell Racing, Yamaha, a couple other vendors. They do both off-road type events there where you can get on a four-wheeler and ride off-road. Or last year I rode a Yamaha FZ9 and had a great time. And that same weekend is Biketoberfest in Daytona, and there's some cool events going on between the AIM Expo and Biketoberfest that we'll talk about coming up real soon. So for you guys out there in October, especially on the East Coast, there's a lot of events going on. Get out to Garrapatta is also in October. Will's going to be posting some stuff on Facebook. He's going to send me some links. I'm going to have them in the show notes for all you. Any questions, Will have his contact info. Will, put something on the Facebook page, please, for the show.
Absolutely.
For you. And if you and Mike want to post the links to the event you guys went on, to the trip, and if you have pictures, certainly feel free to put them up on our Facebook page, and I'll put them up, and I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys?
If anybody wants to has more questions about that trip and stuff like that, if they want to contact you and you can just forward that to me, I'm more than happy to kind of tell them what's up.
Do you want to put out like a Twitter or Facebook? Do you have anything that you want to do? If not, they can just send it to me direct.
I think just send it to you direct.
Okay.
This has nothing to do with the motorcycle stuff, but my day-to-day job is helping inventors. So if you guys have anything that you need help as far as engineering is concerned, my background's engineering. I used to build jet engines, so I do a bunch of stuff like that. If they want to do that, they can check me out at inventionprep.com. That's like invention preparation, but inventionprep.com. That's
all right. Cool. Michael, anything you want to say? You got a cool website or something you want to promote?
I'm just the guy that rides.
That's me, man. Just another moron on a bike. That's me. Yeah. I'm real humble when it comes to the reality of who I am. I'm just another dope on a two-wheel motorcycle. Hey, Will, you want to give the website out one more time? Spell it out for us.
Yes, absolutely. It's www, of course, getouttogarrapatta.com. I'll spell it out, GETOUT, number 2, GARRAPATA. Excuse me, .org. And excuse me, I've been up for. I'm working midnight, so I'm like.
Right. You and Crash with your excuses about working midnight. I'm tired of it.
Hey, you guys work 24 hours straight, right?
Not anymore. I don't now. I'm working days, but yeah, I used to work 24 hours.
I barely work 15 minutes straight. What are you talking about?
There you go. No, yeah, come check us out. Get out to garrapatta.org. We really appreciate all the support you guys and Crash has given us at the show, and we love to have everyone come out.
We had a really good time hanging out with you, Will, and hopefully we'll be able to do that again and maybe get to ride with you again. I appreciate you guys taking the time to come on here with me when I was alone without my co-host being here, because I would have just stumbled through this thing by myself. If you want to find me and Crash, it's Crash at CafeRacerPodcast.com or Steve at CafeRacerPodcast.com. We're on Twitter at CafeRacerPod. at Twitter and Instagram at Cafe Racer Podcast, and then of course our Facebook page at Cafe Racer Podcast. Again, thanks a lot, you guys, for hanging with me, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the rest of your weekend. All I can say to you people out there is get out and ride.